Hey YouTube, welcome to the build review of the Phoenix Model P51 Mustang from Tower Hobby. I got this as a Christmas gift and I've taken a little time getting it together, but I kind of went on a little bit of a build bender and got this thing ready to go almost. So there's some good, there's some not so good. Stay with me after the break and we'll get right into it. Alright guys, let's get right into the build review. You'll probably notice right off the bat up front that I don't have a prop on there. I did actually have the collet on and the spinner back plate so I could get the measurement and get that get the cowl lined up correctly against the back plate so I'd have good spacing. And everything's good there. The problem is it's a plastic spinner. And these big plastic spinners, I can tell you right off the bat, the back plate, when I put the back plate on and gave the propeller a spin, you could see the wobble in the back plate. So I opted to not even fool with it. When I made in this plane, hopefully either tomorrow or the next day, I will probably not have a spinner on it. I'll probably just go with the collet and the prop. It looks ugly, I know, but I'd rather have it look ugly and perform well than to look pretty and perform poorly or vibrate the plane to death. So right off the bat, no spinner up front. You also notice I don't have the wheel pants on. And the reason for that is because when you put the wheel pants on, this design, when you put it on these standoffs, the wheel pants, there's a gap between the strut and the pants. And I'm just, not only that, I didn't get the spacers that I was supposed to get that go on these standoffs to hold the wheel pants off of the strut the correct distance. So I would have had to make the spacers, well, and that doesn't bother me, but I didn't see any point in doing the work just to have an ugly wheel pant sticking, you know, a half an inch below the fuselage of the wing, or the undersurface of the wing. So I just opted not to put them on. I know it's not great, but that's one of the downsides of the kit. That's one of the not so nice things about the Phoenix model planes. Now, regarding fit and finish, you'll notice there is a little gap between this fillet and the wing. That wing is correctly seated. There's a couple pins up here, and you do see a little bit of a gap. Back here on the back, they seem to have gotten it right, but it doesn't quite sit just right against the fuselage. And you can see the same thing on this side, a little bit of a gap. Not terrible, but it's there. It's present for sure. The cowling actually went on better than the Pilatus PC9. That cowling looks really good on there. There's a gap on the bottom. I'm not really sure why. I can't really get an angle that shows it. Maybe I'll flip it over and try and show it to you from the bottom. But aside from that little gap on the bottom, the cowl actually fits on there really nice, and I got really good spacing with my back plate and the spinner and the standoffs that they gave for the motor. So no problems there whatsoever. I did mention in the unbox there are no flaps on this build, so it's one single aileron, but I'll show you that I did add flaps. So there's my flap control, and there's the flap control on the other side. So you can see that I do have, there you go, I can see both of them. My radio's telling me what's going on here. So I did add flaps. I'm using about 6 degrees of flaps, and that should be fine for this plane. And then the landing gear, quick look at the landing gear. Again, the mechanicals are a little fiddly to get going, but once you get them installed, they just work. I mean, the only reason that's not going to come down is if my my servo breaks or something catastrophic happens underneath. But my experience with the mechanicals is they do work well. And then finally, this is my fault. I should have caught it. This is part and parcel to building a plane. You got to catch things like that. I did not catch that. I glued it together, and I didn't catch the gap on that. I should have done more work on the dry fit and not let that happen, but it is what it is. Regarding the empennage, though, very good square. The vertical stabilizer was perfectly 90 degrees. And the horizontal stabilizer was perfectly parallel with the main wing, so that was good news. Okay, so other than the fit and finish issues that I described with the wing saddle, the fact that I did not catch the gap on the vertical stabilizer, I should have caught that. That's easy enough to fix. That's my mistake. And the wheel pants. That's a letdown on a model this nice, honestly. So aside from those issues regarding fit and finish, everything else on the plane went together just fine. The wing halves, they met perfectly on the leading edge and the trailing edge when it came time to glue them together. All of the control surfaces are slotted in, and they fit very well. Not too much in terms of gap between the wing tip and the inner wing saddle there. No problems. The cowl fits really nice. The canopy release, or the hatch release rather, that all fits on there really nicely. So no real issues on that front at all. And then as far as the hardware goes, I'm a big fan of the Phoenix hardware. They use very strong control horns and mounting equipment, and they do a nice job packaging this stuff too. So when you get the plane and you start building it, you'll find that all the control surfaces for a given set of control, all the control horns for a given set of control surfaces are bagged along with their hardware together. So that's just a real nice touch. All right, I'm going to flip the plane over so we can get a look at what's going on the belly. Okay, on the belly of the plane, they put in some good effort to make the plane look authentic. It's got the wing chin, which blends really nice into the fuselage. They've got the belly scoop. There's a couple of screws to hold the wings on in the back. So those are all nice things, but during the build, it's a little fiddly. It would have been, I would have preferred it if this would have been balsa, but it's not. It's plastic. So you have to cut it out and glue it on with CA. So you cut the plastic out, and then you cut the film out, and then you glue the plastic down. And I seem to have gotten mine okay. It sure lends itself easily, if you're not an experienced builder, to making a mess out of this. That'd be real easy to do. And then on the back, same thing. This piece is actually balsa, and then they gave you this little beauty ring to form the cowl for the inlet. So that's all fine. No real problems there. Just take your time, get some good Lexan scissors if you're going to build this plane. You don't want to try this without a decent pair of scissors. So, and then the cups. This is another area that I just struggle with on Phoenix planes. The first one that I did, I actually cut, kind of a final cut, and then I went to fit the gear. The second one, I left a lot of flashing on. I mean, I left a great big amount on while I did all the other trim work and got my rods set and everything else. And then when I was finally ready for final assembly, then I went back and trimmed it up again, and I still managed to break the plastic tip loose. So the plastic that they use here is just a little flimsy. So be aware of it. Be very careful in that area if you build this plane. I was very delicate with it, and I still managed to crack it. At the end of the day, not a big deal, because I just glued it back down again, and it's okay. It worked out. I also mentioned in the unbox that they got away from using the balsa with the covering for the aileron doors. So we'll see how that goes. When I got my throws set correctly, and I'll show you, I'll operate the controls so you see. There's no real flex in that panel that I can see. It doesn't look like it's too much of a problem. So it looks stable. We'll see how it does over time, but right now I don't have any real complaints about it, other than the fact that it's not the same color as the finish on the wing. Let's see, the tail assembly is pretty standard fare for Phoenix. It's just a typical tail wheel that screws into the rudder. One tip I'll give you, I think this is backwards in the instructions. They tell you to screw these keepers on for the tail wheel and then do the control horn. Don't do that. Do the control horn first, then put the keepers on. And the reason I say that is because I put my tail wheel keeper on first, and of course I didn't have room for my control horn. Fortunately, I was lucky, and the hole that I made for the keeper was covered by the plate for the control horn. So I didn't get a bonus hole. I do, but you can't see it. So anyway, when you do yours, don't do the keepers. You can do this one, the more aft one first. That's fine, but hold off screwing this one in until you get your control horn in. They use the dual aileron linkage setup, elevator setup which I like. They've got a little it's called a domino inside the fuselage that lets the two push rods come in, and then one goes right up the middle to the servo. So it's effective. I've had that on other airplanes and it works just fine. I like that setup. It takes a little more time to get the control surface on the elevator, both halves equal, but a little bit of effort and it works out. It works fine. No complaints about that at all. Let's see. I'm going to flip it back over now and we'll finish this video up. Okay, to wrap up my build review, what I would say is that this is pretty much what we've come to expect from Phoenix. Overall, it's a solid build. The fuselage and the wings and the tail surfaces are all square and flat, which is good. I have had a couple of problems in the past with the empennage being out of square. The PC-9 comes to mind. I had to do a lot of work on that plane to get it right. This one, not a problem. Everything was pretty square back there, so I'd say they got that part right. The paint scheme, I think, that's another one that's just really hard with the Mustangs to find something that's not way overdone or way underdone or goofy looking to me. This one's kind of nice. It cuts that space in the middle where I don't have the invasion stripes, but we've got a real nice tasteful color scheme, and I bet in the air this is going to look fantastic with that yellow nose and the stars and bars on the wings. I think that'll be just fine. The covering quality on Phoenix model, hard to beat. I haven't yet to touch this plane with an iron, and I'm doing a build review. So there are probably a few places I could go touch up just to be OCD about it, but it really is very good covering. And I think they really kind of have the market beat on the covering quality. As far as the letdowns go, a couple of fit and finish issues, like I mentioned with the wing saddle, the vertical stabilizer, and I really hope at some point Phoenix can get this gear thing figured out, and maybe they will. But the gear doors that stand off, they stand off an inch from or a quarter of an inch, or half an inch from the bottom of the wing. It's just not a good look. I think they can do better. It just takes a little effort, so hopefully they'll get that fixed. I do like the fact that they put the ventilation in the cowl for the ESC. That's perfect. And other than that, I'd say overall everything went together pretty well. Now, let's be honest. If you're a novice, you should not be flying this airplane. This is a harder airplane to fly, and I expect it's going to be a little bit harder to land. However, that aside, building it was a little bit of a challenge too. Not so much because it's hard to figure out where the parts go, but there's a lot of little knick-knacky things with the belly scoop and the wing chin up front that you don't get with most other builds. So a little bit more challenging on that front, but it's not that big of a deal. But it's probably not something you want to tackle if you're brand new to building ARS. I'll put it that way. Other than that, I don't really have any major complaints about the build. I cannot wait to maiden it, but I'm not going to maiden it with that spinner. I'm just gonna use my prop and go without the spinner. And then I know there's been some interest in the prop test data. I will get that put out there. So anyway, guys, that's the build review for the Phoenix model P51 Mustang from Tower Hobbies. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it's been helpful. And if it has, please consider subscribing. And definitely don't forget to hit the notifications button so you're told when I get new material up on the channel, okay? Take it easy. Thanks for watching.